song gets wrong, we're making our way. We're so strong, I'm stunned by the things that you do. Sing my song gets wrong, we're making our way. Shine extra bright, you'll be making my day. Shine extra bright, you'll be making my day.
What's going on, people? You're back with another podcast with another saucy topic.
We're doing feminism. What is your actual thoughts? I'm going to jump straight in. What are your thoughts?
Feminism.
What does it mean to you?
Feminism. We were originally going to call this toxic femininity, but whatever. We'll just call it feminism.
Both.
What you just want me to chime in?
Yeah.
I think feminism, for what it is as a concept, and its origins are a healthy and wholesome cause, because essentially where it stems from was for women to find an equal place in society based on oppression from men at the time who didn't allow women to vote, didn't allow them to work, so many rights and things where women were shunned their rights. So for a concept, what it is and where it originates from, I'm all for it. And even in the modern day society of what it represents. Personally, though, I think somewhere along the lines in the last 21st century, or the last 60 years or so, something has happened where it's become a bit out of whack. And it's not so much to do with politics or the people in power. It's more so to do with the mind state it's influencing on women. I just think there's a bit of an unbalance with how women approach men on a whole regarding feminism, and how they seem to group all men under the same, put them all in the same box, that they all have the same agenda towards women, when that really isn't the case. Before my own personal experiences, I didn't really, before my own personal experiences, I didn't really have an opinion on feminism. I just thought, oh, okay, cool. But what started shaping my opinion in the modern day version of it was when I would feel energy from women towards me, and what felt like a chip on their shoulder to kind of dub me off as a classic, again, like the last video, toxic male, where sometimes the opinions or situations that happened came from innocence, but in practice, especially in my later adulthood, it's like, wow, there's a lot of women out here who are carrying a lot of trauma or problems or assumptions, or jump to conclusions about men based on feminism and what it's turned into. Still is needed in the modern day society. I'm not going to dispute that, but I just think it's creating a lot of unbalance. And you see it everywhere, from like music, Destiny Child lyrics, Pay All My Bills, like, they literally, and I know that comes from trauma of like being hurt by the wrong type of male, but the wrong type of male really doesn't represent all men. The men who do influence society and politics and the government, they're not all men. They're not your average male. So I think it kind of contributes. There's many other factors that contribute to a phenomenon known as the family setup, the breakdown of the family setup. Many to do with men as well. Many, many more to do with men. But the toxic femininity aspect is also equatable ingredient of that breakup of the family household as well, based on how women interact with men and kind of stereotypes and, roles that they think people should play. So, yeah, in a nutshell, I'm all for feminism, but I think it's just something that's gone out of whack in recent times. And I think it's something that people need to be mindful to balance out a bit more. That's just my take.
So basically what you're saying is changed somewhere along the line. It changed.
It's evolved. I just think it's evolved into a more unbalanced place.
I think people hide behind it sometimes, or they use it to their advantage, maybe.
Yeah.
Or they kind of play on it when, let's use a classic example. Oh, he broke my heart. He's a prick. Like, men are trash. that kind of thing. I think I see it more so at that point.
Mm.
I also see it where, a man has to pay for everything, a man has to do this, and a man has to do that. Now, yes, I know culturally in some religions, including Islamic ones, the men are the providers. However, it's turned into such a thing where it's like, if the man don't pay, he's trash. If the man doesn't deal with pay for my nails, he's trash. Like it's evolved into that. So I guess it's like, for me as well, I think it stems from a great place. Nowadays, I think people have evolved it to a point where I don't think it's actually more toxic than it's worth.
Yeah, I just feel it's it can easily just switch into, there's no middle ground with it. I think women who claim themselves to be feminists, not all of them, but some who do claim to be feminists, it's like as soon as something doesn't seem in their eyes right, they'll jump to the extreme version of what a feminist is. And to me, that's just an unbalanced version of what a feminist is. It becomes like sides, it becomes like a war. And it's like feminism in itself shouldn't exist in a vindictive manner against what they feel has wronged them. It should exist to bring balance back. It shouldn't be there to take it to the other extreme of things that have happened. And that goes with all people who've been oppressed or discrimination happened against them or whatever. I just think we have to remind ourselves, because we are human beings, innit? We've got light and dark in us. We've got good and evil in us. Every single human on the planet. It's not about tipping the scale so that it's now to get revenge, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's about balancing the injustice without any sort of revenge or vindictiveness behind it, or like malintent or whatever. So I guess that's just my stance, is just to kind of voice what I have felt along my journey. Because if it wasn't for the experiences I've had, I wouldn't really have as much of an opinion. The experiences I've had have shaped my opinion this way. Before the experiences I had, if you'd asked me about feminism, where I had no experience, I would have been like, oh yeah, equal rights. Women in the past, the suffragettes, all of that, get the right to vote. Go to the workplace, not be crucified for being witches. I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? It would have been, oh yeah, balance. But until I had the experiences, which I'll go into in a minute, they kind of made me feel with the people in question, like almost to the extent I should feel bad for being a man. And surely that's not the effect you want to have if you represent a cause like that, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's all that's where my opinion stems from. But yeah, like you said something as well. Like, you do see where people use it to their advantage. There's an example of Kevin Samuels, a video online where he's asking a bunch of so-called feminists on a podcast or a platform something about, they're on a rant about feminism and equality for women in the world and whatever. And then he kind of like, I can't remember, I don't know what the podcast was called, but he kind of disarms their argument against them in the podcast, because he shows them how they use it for their advantage when it suits. If they're going to go in a club where, if they're hot enough or whatever, they get in free, they'll go in. But the other females who aren't hot enough don't go in. But these are the so-called feminists. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm calling into question, do you use it as something to gain for yourself? Because if it is that's not really a true cause, is it? That's manipulating it.
Mm-hmm.
So it brings into question, why do people claim or shout from the rooftop? Is it all genuine? And even if it is, how far are you going with the like extremity of it? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's been taken too far, personally. I think I hear it, and I've heard it over the last at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming really toxic. It's not real life anymore. It's not how you can kind of progress and prosper and grow. It doesn't work with that kind of a theory anymore. And again, I'm all for like equality and stuff. Like, I've heard it throughout, our upbringing, that boys are, more important, not more important, but are made to feel like that. However, if you now spin it and, women, it's like, it's given too much to it now. So I want to know, and I'm sure they want to know, your experiences.
Right. So bear in mind, like I said, I was just purely just naive and innocent before my experiences. But then I think it's just little things, like something really like, okay, the first time I remember was I was out with my family and one of the old au pairs from my younger brother was there. And it was Halloween, we were dressed up or whatever, go for some meal or some dessert or something somewhere in Bayswater. And that was it. My stepdad was wearing an outfit, but what the outfit had these like ears that he would place on his ears, like some sort of goblin thing, whatever, like earpieces. He took off the earpiece and he just laid them on the table. And we're just having a laugh, oh, they look all weird or whatever. Duh, duh, duh. Now, again, out of pure innocence, and this is down to interpretation, but I was like 27 or whatever at the time. We're making jokes about the earpiece. It looks weird. Then I go, it kind of looks like a vagina. But I assure you, there was no male intent behind that. I'm just saying it kind of reminded me, I'm an artist, right? I used to study art in school. I used to study Georgia O'Keeffe. If you don't know who she is, go check out her paintings. I don't need to say much. Well, I'll give you a little bit. She paints flowers, but the flowers kind of resemble stuff. So when I saw the earpiece, it reminded me of like her painting, and I thought it's kind of got the folds, the shapes and the folds like a vagina. So I just said it looks like a vagina. This au pair got her back up a bit. She was like, she made a sarky comment back. She's like, if that's what you think a vagina is, you probably haven't seen many vaginas or whatever. And then we were like,
she took it as a bit of a dig, basically.
She took it like a dig. And I was like, the energy in that moment, I was like, I wasn't trying to come at females. I wasn't trying to, it was just more like if someone put a long sausage on the table, someone said, oh, it looks like a dick.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take it personally, but I think the way she took it was a bit like, I could sense it was a bit tense. So that was the first moment I was like, and what kind of made me feel a bit out of balance in that moment was I didn't come at it with any sort of malintent, but the energy she showed me was a bit like, whoa. So that was just one random experience. I think after that, my ex was she was a self-proclaimed feminist. And I think in that experience, for what it was, when it would come out at times where she felt I was being a typical, I don't know, like in her mind, her assessment of when I would come out to be, in her head, a typical man, then I would see it come out of her and it kind of would throw me off. I think in that experience, what happened was I sensed a bit of a power struggle with her. Like when I would go out and do my music, endeavors and all of that stuff, it didn't sit that well with her. That the prospect of having a man who was independent with his life and went out there and did his own thing, she wasn't very comfortable with, and she preferred that I would be confined to her knowing where my whereabouts were to some degree. When she would see me at music events with other people, other artists, some of them female, it would cause some issues and things of that nature. But even to the extent where with her own father, she would kind of gloat and be like, I'd make more than him at his age, when the age she was at, the age when he was her age, that she made more than him and probably will continue to make more. It was like
she wanted to have one up on men, basically.
And
do you think it was more like a control thing?
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into to preserve that person because some people can connect the dots, and I'm not trying to expose stuff, but to preserve their information, a little bit, yes, without going too much into it. But when I would sense that in the relationship, it just felt, again, for me, the first time getting into a long-term relationship. That was my first proper long-term one. Sensing all these energies and shifts started to influence how I respond to this energy when it seems to combat me, when I'm just navigating life naively and innocently. So it just threw me off, and it made me think more about feminism and how it can actually detrimentally impact male mental health as well. And I say that regarding the males who don't necessarily deserve it, because that kind of feminist energy, they'll dispel onto all males, but not all males are deserving of that energy, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm saying about the balance. It's like, do you just carry on that demeanor to attribute to all men, or can you compartmentalize based on true oppression, true discrimination, and compartmentalize where it's required and where it isn't. Because I think if you're just operating from a place where it's brought out as a defense mechanism on all men, whenever you feel discriminated, which you have to check, am I actually being discriminated in this moment? That's what I invite people to, or feminists to, current day feminists, to really tap into and understand how am I influencing the world with this demeanor? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I was just taking me back to when I was growing up. And I think it used to be the case where boys got away with, or men got away with doing certain things that girls weren't allowed to do. Oh, it's not safe for the girls to do. And I get it. Safety is different for women and men, right? But I saw it growing up. But in my household, luckily, it wasn't like that as much. It was pretty much I could do what my brother would want to do, for example, and vice versa. There was never any discrimination. So I think it comes from like an older generation, traditions, maybe even cultures. And then it's about, I think, families just adopting the new kind of stance on it. Because it can be taught, if that makes sense, within a family dynamic, if it is from there. But yeah, you're right. Destiny's Child don't help.
I mean, it's fine. I can put it aside as it's just, maybe even that is a form of comedy, the way they write their lyrics. But it feels, it's not necessarily to do with like Beyonce or Kelly or any of them, but it's more the females who adopt the lyrics and they sing it in the club with such like confidence and like such conviction that what they're singing about these lyrics is how it is.
Yeah.
It sometimes comes across a bit dangerous that it's becoming a bit weaponized.
But this is what I mean. Like, for example, I can give an example. My dad always taught me to have my own, no matter what. So I feel like, independence, not to rely on a man for certain things. Now, if you've been brought up in that kind of household, men paying your bills for you, paying for your nails, yeah, okay, if it's your birthday, cool. An occasion, cool. Or if the man wants to, cool. But it shouldn't be you have to, and if you don't pay for the first dinner on our first date, I ain't going to progress this any further. I mean, there's a lot of that. I've seen it. I've seen it in my own circles. I've seen it.
That's a classic one, isn't it? Like who gets the bill at the end of the day? That's a whole. We can go into it like short term. But I think personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a team in a union or whatever. If it's half and half, that's fine. If someone is more able to and is okay with doing so, nothing wrong with that as well. But I don't think there should be an expectation from either party to
and
expect
that's what it
the
is.
other.
It's the expectation.
You know what I mean? I get there's a lot of girls out there who I've met a couple who think it should be that way, but it almost is it comes across as if you're translating that the other half is not as important as you. If you expect they should, and you think they're wrong for not doing so, like that's.
Do you know what I quite like? I like the change and stuff. What's happening recently? Like there's some people. Because we're not talking about every single girl is like this.
No, absolutely not.
And I think we've seen it within our own circles as well. That girls are starting to propose. Because why should men have to do it all the time? Answer me that. Answer me why.
Chivalry dead and women killed it. No,
it might be from tradition, but at some point you have to break tradition as well because you have to go with the times.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think also the theatrics around feminism is also something to bring to question. You told me about Katy Perry going into space and doing all of that stuff. It was like with that, I think it's quite, very theatrical, and it just feels what are we celebrating here? Because if you ask me, this is what I say about where it originates from. I don't have too many examples, but first off the bat, I don't know, Mother Teresa. Another one, Marie Curie. Now, I don't agree with radiotherapy as a form of therapy, but regardless, the intention behind it was to innovate, a cure for disease and stuff. That is true innovation as a woman. These people who parade because it's like, strong woman and What was Katy Perry actually doing?
She was
for society?
I don't even. That was a whole scam. I don't even think she was in space. Number one.
No, but some feminists will get behind it and use that as you go, girl. It's like, why are you going to space? You're risking your life. Like, you might not come back. What, to be remembered as a feminist? I think
really they were doing it as a statement, but it's really backfired because people do not rate it like at all.
Right.
Like if you think about it, if you're doing something that is risky to your life, now fair play, you want to do it, cool. But you've got a kid who's quite young, waiting for you to come home. And what would you rather, to try and prove some stupid statement or actually be there for your family? It's one or the other, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was more to do with her promoting her tour, which is
to sell again for an agenda. What I just said before, right? What is the actual intention behind using the slogan feminism?
Yeah, it's not real in this moment for her.
It depends.
Yeah.
You know, for example, like I just want to check if I've got space. Yeah, it's cool. For example, like I'm quite passionate about. You know, it's natural that in society, men are not, you know, we're taught, not even by, it's not about making it sides, even amongst men ourselves, don't cry, man up, all of that stuff. So I get that the whole thing of being a man in society is a questionable concept in itself. But regardless, things like the suicide rate in men is way higher than with women. If I was to tomorrow come out, maybe with that being the drive behind my motives, if I came out one day and I was like, I'm a masculinist. Now, before I even open my mouth as to why I would use that term, because that's the opposite of feminist, right?
Yeah.
If I came out as a masculinist, before I even open my mouth to say why, if say I went on a campaign of, I don't know, like spreading awareness of male suicide rates or whatever. I don't know, whatever else men go through, you know, health, whatever. I guarantee you I would get ripped a new ass before I even say why. And this is what I'm saying. It's like fundamentally all humans are equal. Yes, men have influenced most industries for the longest time, but that doesn't automatically make all men of all eras and times, especially in current eras and times, the ones who shape how society is. The ones on the higher levels, and then you can argue a different case, and you have to do your research as to who and why. But it's such a tricky thing to just paint everyone with the same brush, because just, in my opinion, it just doesn't work that way.
I was just going to say, I think in higher, like you're saying, in the higher places, maybe there is still an element where some women don't get a chance to go into some boardrooms.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different league of people.
Does that apply to us here?
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't apply to like the normal average people, I would say. I just think it's a little bit outdated now. In certain majority of cases, I would say it's probably outdated. Because I don't think that I have a problem in, if there's a boy against me in an interview, that, he's going to get it. I don't actually think that anymore. I don't think that at all. I think it's fair play for either.
And that's how it should be. Even if it was biased behind closed doors, it's better to leave thinking it was just a fair game and it was a fair competition and the better person got the job or whatever. Because if you go about it the other way, it can make you very bitter, very petty, and then that gives you a battery in your back to now start dubbing the world a certain way. Do you know what I mean? So I agree. I agree with that.
But I guess in a nutshell, we think that it's a little bit outdated in terms of it doesn't represent what it's supposed to anymore. I think that people are using it to have a bit of a princess life.
Some people, and this is what we're highlighting, is that people who scream feminism is like that group of people who scream feminism. You dissect that group and you compartmentalize them into the separate versions of who they are. Some could be manipulating it. Some could be it's an organic, true cause. Some could be it's just because it's popular to say, or another group could just be because they got broken up with a boyfriend and like F men, I don't care about men. Like, so you have to really break. When someone says I'm a feminist, it's not like, oh my God, yes, no, you have to.
You know, one thing just came to mind when you said that about breakups is I don't like it. Have this on record. I do not like it when women do this. They do this. So if one person in a group has broken up with their husband, man, whatever, they will start planting seeds in the other people's heads that people are in happy relationships and satisfying relationships, that men are trash and, you need to be careful and blah, blah, blah. I just think that that's wrong. I don't agree with it. I think each their own experience, and you can't paint every single man with the same brush.
No. And vice versa. Like, the thing is with me, like, I've gone through a breakup before. I've had women act certain ways that are not very good, but it's just that individual doesn't make all women the same. Like, so you have to have faith in that, in people, that's not the case. You know, you can't let one scumbag's experience with you taint the rest of all people of that gender. Just can't, man. It's not right to do. So.
Yeah, that is pretty much, I would say, our thoughts on, well, we were going to say toxic femininity, which I think it did turn into in the end. It's not just feminism, but we touched on both.
Because feminism, I just want to point out again, feminism is a good cause, but it trickles into a deeper conversation beyond that in terms of the person claiming it. And that's what you have to screen and assess and understand about it before it's just like, oh no, like just branded as this is the cause, so this should just, no, there's scumbags out there, and they can be men or women.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway,
we will be back with something more saucy. Even more saucy. We'll see you soon. Bye.